How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we have the first video, or I guess you could say even episode, to the first, technically the first series I'm starting on the channel here. It's called At the Shop. You know, I'm gonna be working on cars and all that fun shit. Maybe you guys will learn some things along the way, hopefully. It's kind of the whole point. But today we got my brother's 2014 Nissan Sentra. I got two lower ball joints to do. See if you guys can see this. It's got a bit of play in it. Not supposed to be able to do that. And then we have a tie rod on the opposite side. It's got some play in it. It's a little harder to see, but it's got some slight play in it. But anyways, we're gonna end up doing both lower ball joints and both outer tie rods. It's just what he wants done. Ended up getting this pickle fork kit. I'm probably not gonna need it, but I figured I'd show it off here. And it's actually really cool because this kit's on Amazon. It's like 20-30 bucks. It's got an adapter for an air hammer, so you can put any of the heads right on the air hammer. And then you just got like a regular handle right here. It's got the knurling, give you extra grip, and it's got the back so you can smack it with a hammer. Pretty cool kit, worth the money. And then I got this really nice OEM tools ball joint press. We're gonna see how this works today. It's really nice, it's got a really nice finish on it. Not that the finish really matters. It's got all kinds of adapters. So basically what this ball joint tie rod were doing is they were causing a shudder anytime he braked. And as he was going down the road, it would have a slight shudder, but it got worse as he braked. There's quite a bit of things that can cause that. Warped rotors are actually a really common thing. But ball joints, tie rods, inner tie rods, and wheel bearings can also cause a slight shudder or a very heavy shudder depending on, you know, how worn the part is. So just for a future reference, that's the type of stuff that you guys can look at if you're getting some type of shudder. Go ahead and get to work on that ball joint, get that out, show you guys how to do that. We'll work on the tie rod, and then I'm gonna wrap this video up. 21mm. Starting out, we're gonna remove this 14mm nut. And then there's basically a bolt that goes all the way through, and you're gonna punch it out, and then we're gonna pry down on this and pop this ball joint stud out of the knuckle right here. Little rubber mallet. Now they have a tool that's a little hook, and it goes on here and it has a little loop at the bottom of it, and that allows you to put a pry bar in and pry down. Now I don't have that tool right now. It's something I need to get. But usually they don't come out too hard. You just pry down on them. It's already loose. Now that I got that all busted free, we're gonna take these two bolts out that hold the knuckle onto the strut. And then you're gonna wanna take this axle nut. We're gonna pull the CB axle out. We're basically gonna take this whole assembly, the rotors, the hub, the knuckle, everything, and we're gonna pull it out of our way. That way we can get the ball joint press on the control arm to press that ball joint out. 21mm sockets. One on the front, one on the back on a ratchet or a wrench. You basically just gotta keep that bolt from spinning freely. Usually while I'm in here, I'll double check to make sure none of the slides are stuck, none of the pads are stuck, and we're good. 1 1/4 socket for the CB axle nut. This CB axle I don't even have to fight with. I just did wheel bearings in this car recently, and I greased everything, greased everything, because that's going to be effortless to take out. Another thing that probably would have been good to mention is if you're not going to take the rotor pads off, you're going to want to put one of the lug nuts on to hold the rotor in place, because it's going to try to run away on you. Be careful with your ABS wire. You want to tear that. Alright, so where the ball joint is, there's a little C-clip in here that you're going to want to take off. The ball joint presses out that way, and then it presses back in this way. Because I don't actually have the proper C-clip pliers, just another tool I need to get. Story of my life. I'm going to take a little pick. I'm going to put it in one of the little holes, and I'm going to take a flathead and I'm going to hold this in place while I pry up on a clip. little bit more work, but gotta do what you gotta do. So what I was doing is I was putting end of one of the picks in that hole and holding it while I pried up. It works, takes a little bit longer, but you know, gotta work with what you have. So what we want to do is we want to find a cup that goes not on the ball joint bottom, but around it. And we're gonna find one for the top that goes right around this lip on the ball joint. That way we have something to push against to help push the ball joint out. Just like that. 22mm socket. Effortless. It's actually really clean in here. Usually it gets rusty. I'll take a die grinder, go through and clean it up, but this is actually not rusty at all. It's actually still greasy. New ball joint. This is actually a greasable ball joint. The stock one was not. So after we pressed it in, it came with a grease fitting. We'll be able to grease it from the bottom after. Now I always grease right around the ball joint where it's going to set in. That way it doesn't end up rusting. So now for putting it in, we're basically going to go reverse. Just like that. It's harder than it looks without the proper tool. So after fighting with it, finally got it in there. So now we just got the fitting to put on, 7mm. Tighten the axle not too tight, you just want to get it snug because we're going to end up torquing it when it's down on the ground. You want to squirt enough in her until she starts to weep a bit. That's when you know she's filled up. That's what she said. Some brands have a little slot in them, and once you get enough in them, they'll start spitting a little bit. I always put a little bit of grease in between the rim and the rotor. This helps prevent any rust from building up, or at least for a while. So it's always good to do a little visual inspection once you're all done. I tighten both the nuts down for the bolts, hold the strut and the knuckle together. ABS wire plugged in both sides like it's supposed to be. Both top and bottom bolts for the caliper. And then the bottom bolt holds the ball joint to the knuckle. Everything's good and tight. Ready to put the wheel back on. The axle nut's going to be 92 foot-pounds. We're going to torque the lug nuts to 85 foot-pounds. So this other tie rod's going to be a lot easier to do. We're going to want to loop bust this lock nut loose real quick. It's 11/16. And then we're going to want to take off the nut that connects the tie rod to the knuckle. This is a 5/8. Hit the dust shield there a little bit on accident. Good enough. All right, so we want to count the amount of times we turn this off. "17 turns. Real quick, I want to make sure that my tie rods match. They are exact. A little bit of grease. All right, we're going to turn on 17 turns. It's a 16 now. A lot of aftermarket parts, the nuts and bolts will be slightly different in size. Depends on the brand you go with. Some people torque this stuff down. If it's not like a wheel bearing, wheels, axle nut, you know, generally most of these parts, you just give it a good old American ugga-duggas. Make sure the cotter pin obviously can slide in there. I always just bend them straight back, just like that. That's how I always bend them. There's no real right or wrong way to do it. Everybody's got their own method. Just like the ball joint, we're gonna puff it up until she starts squirting a little bit. See it coming out the bottom. You gotta tighten this nut back up. Now I'm gonna put the wheel on. I'm gonna show you guys real quick how to do a simple little alignment with a measuring tape. Take the measuring tape, run it all the way across the front of the tires. 51 inches, and then the back, 51 inches. Now obviously this isn't going to be as accurate as the machine, but... Alright guys, so that's going to be it for today. Car's all done. Hope you guys learned something, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.